Okay, we're going to call the public safety meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
present.
Yeah.
Did you hear me? I'm sorry. I said aye.
Oh, you're present.
I'm present. My bad.
That's okay.
See what you did, Alderman Vaccaro? You did.
I know.
Alderwoman Howard,
Present.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Present.
Alderman Muhammad,
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Chairman Vaccaro.
Present.
6 present, you have quorum.
Thank you. Now we need a approval of the minutes from the Tuesday, January 5th meeting.
Mr. President,
I make
move
a
approval of minutes dated January 5th, 2021.
second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Chairman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. 5 aye votes.
Okay. So we're going to move on. I'll tell you, Vice Chairman Boyd, if you don't have a problem, I think I'm going to do 212 because I'm sure a lot of the other aldermen want to comment on it. Otherwise, we could do it now. It's just, I could change the order or not. I'll leave it up to you. You're muted.
Mr. Chairman, you can save me for last. That's fine.
Okay, then I'm going to.
We can, I yield to those who are not on the committee.
Okay, I'm going to then move on to Alderman Oldenburg. You want to present Board Bill 221?
Be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly. Okay, so if recognized here, just do a little housekeeping. There are 2 amendments to Board Bill 221 committee substitute. So hopefully you all have in the folder access to what is 221 as introduced, and then there should be Board 221 committee sub. And then I apologize, there are just 2 amendments to those. So I think, Mr. Chairman, we'll need to put the committee substitute in front of us, and then
So
we
we'll
can
need-
pick up the amendments.
So we'll take a motion to put Board Bill 221 committee sub in front of us.
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, please call. the roll.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll. 221 committee substitute is now in front of us. If you want to go ahead, Alderman Oldenburg, and explain the sub. I know we got a clean copy, and also then your amendments, which we'll have to vote on.
Yeah, certainly. Happy to do that. The amendments really are just cleanups and really oversights on my part of language that just needed to be in there, and wanted to make sure you were all working from an accurate document. Just speaking to the committee substitute of 221, I mean, plainly, this creates an ordinance that amends various sections of the St. Louis Revised Code and previous ordinances and board bills to permit the Board of Trustees of the Firefighter Retirement System, known as FRS, to simultaneously act as the Board of Trustees of the Firefighter Retirement Plan, the FRP. I did send around, it might be helpful, Mr. Chairman, it might be helpful to grab the PowerPoint that I emailed
That's
everyone.
fine. You can go ahead and share a screen.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Hang on.
This way everybody sees it at the same time.
Yep.
Why he's doing that, Mr. Chairman, or do we have any speakers on this bill?
Not that I know of. But we have people we can call in if we want, but not that I know of.
I did invite two folks, Mr. Chairman, the
Right.
executive director.
And I have everybody on the, because what's gonna happen if we have some, then we're gonna have more. I'm
Okay,
gonna, unless we have to, they're out there, but they're
Okay.
not on the meeting. Let's see how this,
okay,
because it's gonna be point, counterpoint, you should be able to explain your bill, I would hope.
sure. You guys can see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes, sir. It's up.
Great. So explain it again. On the first slide there, what we're effectively doing is we have two firefighter pension plans, and we have two boards that direct each of those plans. And again, simply put, this board bill makes the proper amendments without touching anything in terms of benefits or pension items or personnel, but specifically just makes a governance change to say we ought to have one board manage both systems. So I just laid out a quick history here. I know a lot of people are probably familiar with this. Some of the folks I know who are on this committee are certainly familiar with the history, who were down here at the time of quote unquote firefighter pension reform. And just that's laid out right there in that timetable. Where we basically ended up was on slide 2 after several board bills and several attempts in the courts. Judge Durker basically ruled for a dual system that also had some various appeals, but we're operating now under slide 2, which is a quick little graphic I just put together. On the left side is how we are currently. We have FRS, and those are the board members that exist for it. The FRS also being the old system, and then FRP being the new system and its board members and appointees. What we'd like to go to save the city some operational costs to the tune of at least $500,000 a year, we'd like to go to a one board for two systems. The FRS has experience actually managing multiple systems as they rolled off from their 1940s to their 1960 plan. During most of the 70s and 80s, the FRS was managing 3 pension systems. So certainly within their operational scope. The right-hand side is what we want to get to, just visually speaking. We will have the firefighters retirement system and the board members that exist managing FRP. But what will remain in FRP is the city disability board. So the FRS board, which consists of 3 active firefighters, 1 retiree, the chief, as well as 3 city appointments, the comptroller and 2 for the mayor, will act as, acting on benefits and operating the fund and managing it and directing its future. And the city will maintain a disability board, which will be effectively a 5-member board that will exist of the comptroller, 2 mayoral appointments, and 2 board of trustees or FRS members. So that was something that actually the firefighters and the board of trustees at FRS were very upfront about and said, we understand the city's sensitivity around potentially a board that has a majority of firefighter members granting disability. So if the city wants to maintain that in terms of control, we will let them. Hence 2 mayoral appointments and the comptroller equaling 3 city for that disability board. That was in the spirit of negotiation, a proper kind of concession. The next slide really just says what the highlights are in this bill. Again, we're going to have one board managing 2 systems, but the 2 systems will be independent in the sense that they will need to keep separate books and records. They will have to have separate audits, separate profits, losses, and expenses. What we do gain in terms of efficiency here is one board can actively and strategically be on the same page with investment, a diversity strategy, and or an active strategy that encompasses both systems, and some efficiencies can be gained there. Also, you can utilize the same professionals, independent accountants, the actuaries. So this language allows them that they would be able to, if they wanted to, utilize kind of the same folks. And I think all reasonable minds of economics and otherwise would agree that if you're using the similar professionals for two systems, you will gain some savings there. I talked about the city disability board making kind of all those decisions. And the other important component to this legislation is that it will have an effective date when the Missouri Revised Statutes of '87 are amended up at the state. So there is a bill being carried up there, I think by Senator Roberts, actually, to begin to make the necessary state amendments. Because if we all remember, FRS, or the old system, is sort of governed by the state in a lot of ways. But what will end up at the end of the day here in slide 3, sort of the virtues of Board Bill 221 really are that, there will be efficient governing, right? This is good government. We're going to have some cost savings. Right now, there's a $900,000 budget line item at the city to maintain and staff the board of FRP, the new board. And FRS has the sophistication and ability to do this and just absorb the management and administrative costs of that. Some practical virtues is around portability and shared program, that exists. Also, in talking with a lot of firefighters, and who we all know, Al Demetrius Alford with Local 73, he says that this is a good step forward for firefighters to kind of regain some trust, and it increases morale, and honestly I think it helps heal some bruised feelings that many of us weren't around here for at the time it was happening. So the last slide I have here also shows the financial savings. And again, I grabbed these numbers from the operating budget of FRP and FRS. So we know at a minimum, FRP is around a $900,000 budget. I think they actually even increased it in reading the last few minutes of that board to cover some additional costs. So we know that a lot of those costs, and I've itemized them out there, can be absorbed with a significant savings of operations to the city year over year. And you guys know me, so I always had to put a little bar graph there just because I know I like pictures. I will entertain questions on this, Mr. Chairman, and then I'd like to just bring the amendments so we also have that buttoned up as well.
You're muted.
You know what? I noticed that when I was talking to myself. Anyway, Vice Chairman Boyd, you're up for questions for the chairman, for the sponsor of the bill.
Sure, Alderman Oldenburg. I'm just a little bit confused. So can you go back to your graph that had the membership of FRS and the membership of?
Sure. This one, slide 2.
Right. So basically, if you took City Disability Board and just swung it back over, basically what we're doing is we're going back to square one from what was done 8 years ago. Right?
Well,
towards the management of the pensions.
That's right. And well, I would say there is a different board composition than there was 8 years ago. But from a governance structure perspective, Alderman, what you're saying is factual.
Okay, so let me ask this. Why couldn't we swing from FRS to FRP versus going from FRP into FRS?
Yeah, I think
Have savings.
for the stated reasons in slide 4 there that the firefighters, I mean, Alderman, you were down here at the time, so I don't have to explain to you how tough of a fight and you know how certain people you know are battle tested as a result of that and have you know just a lot of hurt feelings over it. I think the point of that is to keep FRS and remain is to keep firefighters and their view of the world in terms of what their financial livelihood is in retirement, feeling confident and certainty and trustworthiness around the FRS that has been managing a pension system since the 40s, even earlier, actually. So that was the intention, really, is to you know bring that confidence and morale of steadiness, knowing that there are a good amount of firefighter interests on the governing board.
Right. And I certainly support the firefighters. I'm wondering, over the past 8 years, how have the pension system had a negative impact on our firefighters? How it's currently structured today?
Well, I think financially speaking, both for the city and the pension systems, there haven't been hiccups. I would say that the true costs of what took place 8 years ago is really in the benefit structures, which of course is not at all as part of this board bill. This is purely a governance change and an efficiency gain. But if you recall, a majority of the cost savings and the success was around the retirement age at 55, paying in 9% of their biweekly pay instead of 8%, as well as the sick leave cured up and some of the disability controls put in as well. You know, tax returns had to be submitted, those types of items. We got very granular, and those savings are great. And those benefits are protected. If either board, if you wanted to go to FRP, FRS, either board wanted to, you know, reopen those benefits, they would have to come back to the Board of Alderman for a full approval and the mayor signing off on it. And I think that's a hurdle that I don't think the firefighters want to do, nor do I think any members of the Board of Alderman have at the moment. This purely is to, I think, settle some bruised feelings from 8 or 9 years ago and put some kind of trust back in the membership of FRS and FRP.
I guess I don't understand what the bruised feelings are. If we've been operating for 8 years and, you know, there has been no negative impact. So I'm just from a policy standpoint, purely from a governance standpoint, what are we trying to fix?
I think we are trying to save the city some money and gain efficiencies with having one Board of Trustees manage 2 systems, which is more generally accepted. You know, I looked last night late and I couldn't find through an internet search anywhere where there are 2 boards managing 2 separate systems. In most cases, it's you gain a lot of efficiencies with one board managing several tiered systems.
I agree 100%. Let me go back.
I mean, that's what we're really trying to fix. I think, as well as give some confidence to some firefighters who feel as if, you know, they got squeezed in the change. And look, I mean, change in pensions for long sustainable protection for the city, and quite frankly, long sustainable protection for the systems, is not easy. And I'm not here to lecture you on that. You lived it. You're long in the tooth when it comes to that, Alderman. In fact, you just had a birthday, so I don't want to bring that up at all either. But
I'm happy to get older.
You get wiser. You get wiser. But I think we're trying to fix some operational go forward. I mean, this is around $500,000 a year that the city wouldn't need to worry about, as well as, you know, FRS is ready to absorb this.
Judge Durker, your comment. So Judge Durker ruled that we should have 2. I thought you said he ruled that we should have 2 systems. What did you say?
Yeah, he ruled that we would have that you'd have a dual system. That's correct.
So if we do this, wouldn't we be kind of violating the judge's order?
No, because the two systems would still exist. He didn't comment on the boards.
Okay.
His ruling was, I read that whole opinion, and I'd be happy to hash it out. But he didn't touch anything about the boards and the governance. But effectively, he said, well, there's a dual system, because I think original ordinances wanted to just wind up FRS and cancel it, and everyone would be an FRP. And then there was injunctions on a couple of different matters, not entirely on the suit that was being brought, but at the end of the day, basically from those summer months in 2013 until he ruled, he said that a dual system is what's going to happen here until everyone in one system freezes out or goes away, which would probably be 8 or 9 decades from now.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman.
Mike on. Alderwoman Howard, any questions for the sponsor?
Yes, I do. This is, I think, probably a wise way to go. Bruce's feelings aside, I think economically it makes sense to add this to and ensure the sustainability of the retirement fund, the FRS, FRP, having them both together. And I understand those that were moved to the FRP program feel as though they're getting the, I guess the discounted version of a retirement system. But in this day and age, I think any retirement or pension is valuable, and because it's becoming a thing of the past. I guess my question is, do we have numbers on how many are in each system? How many firefighters are in one or the other?
Alderman, I meant to have that data point, and I'm sorry, I don't on either.
Okay, well, I would assume that, I guess the FRS has the majority, but I know there was sort of a buyout and some of the people were caught in this.
Yeah, as of
20 years or
February
something.
1st, 2013, I mean, it was effectively frozen. And if you had less than 20 years on, you moved to FRP, the new system. If you had more, you stayed in FRS and absorbed those benefits that were guaranteed to you. So that's where they kind of cut it off. And I would agree. There's probably right now, as we stand, more in FRP, but I just can't say with certainty. And
with that turnover, it's hard to say. Yeah.
But I can definitely get those points for you before
if you can, and just send it to us. I think it's an interesting fact, because I would like to know, the cost. We've got the cost on both systems here, and I'm just wondering, is the cost more because there's more people in the FRP than the FRS, or just because they've been around long? I don't understand, and I don't know why one would be more than the other. So
well, I think from stepping back for a second, I mean, FRS has been around for a while, so they have the ability to and the sophistication, I guess, to take this on, so they can do it for much cheaper.
Right.
My guess would be, maybe the city's costs would increase as the membership increased, but I'm not sure, because there's just various compliant components. I don't know if just by the mere size of it necessarily grows your expenses.
Okay, FRS is the grandfather one, right? Okay, but they have no personnel costs listed, which is interesting in your chart.
So they do that. I think that's just showing. There's a 228,000 in savings there, because that's just the personnel cost to the city. So
okay.
That's just showing that change. There are personnel costs associated with FRS, but this is just so I was just trying to show the savings to the city. They wouldn't need to increase their personnel costs because they already have.
Okay. No, I think this is a good deal. I think that, and then one more question. Now, this will not go into effect until the enabling legislation in Jeff City is through?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
And what is the outlook on getting that through?
So the trajectory for that is probably August, is to be sort of candid. at this moment. Things just take a little longer up there, but through both FRS and Local 73 and the St. Louis delegation of legislators, didn't seem to be a problem with anybody in terms of the issue.
Well, hopefully we can keep it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact,
All
I think us passing this board bill and codifying it as ordinance will say, okay, this is what the city wants to do, so we can move it along. But
Do you really think they care what we want to do?
No, your point's well
Okay.
taken, Alderwoman. Your point's well taken.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much. And thank you for doing this. And I appreciate that the firefighters are on board with this. This was a long fought battle back in 13 that I recall. So I'm just glad that we can move forward and make the retirement system better for all our people that are out there in the public safety realm. Thank you.
But
Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard, any questions for the sponsor of the bill?
No question, just a comment. Many of my questions have been asked already by Alderman Boyd and Alderwoman Howard. I'm just in a position that I'm glad that we are offering some resolution. I too was here in 2013 when all of that was going on. I was a rookie alderperson at the time, and it was one of the hardest votes I had to make. There was a lot of contention surrounding it, but I think that even during that time and even now, we all were just on board with doing what was in the best interest of the firefighters and their pension, and as well as the city. It was a very trying time, and sometimes you put things on the shelf, and so when this came back before us, I had to remember all those acronyms again, because when you don't touch it every day, you kind of forget how it all lines up. But I too would like to see a breakdown of the numbers in between the both systems. And I am glad that we are to a point where everybody is talking again. I hope the state does what they need to do just so that we can move forward and definitely protect our firefighters and their pensions. We all down here, we support our first responders wholeheartedly, and whatever they need, we try our best to give it to them. So when they do the job that they do and they sacrifice so much of themselves and their family sacrifice as well, it's my hope that we'll always continue to do what's in their best interest with keeping the city and its interest in mind too and intact. So I'm glad that this is coming forward, and you definitely have my support regarding this bill. Thank you.
thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you. Alderman John Mohammed, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Alderman Oldenburg, for sponsoring this legislation. I have no questions. I am in strong support of this. Thank you, Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Alderman.
Alderwoman Pam Boyd, any questions for the sponsor of this bill?
No, they have been asked and answered. Thank you, Tom.
Alderwoman Shameem Clark Hubbard, any questions for the sponsor? Okay, and I really have no questions, just a comment. I think this is the right thing to do. These guys are out risking their lives with this COVID stuff, and all this. I appreciate this being brought forward. Alderman Oldenburg, can you go ahead and start giving us your amendments to Board Bill 221 Committee Substitute?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. There's
Listen,
two amendments.
amendment number 1.
Yeah, there's Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. I'm just going to read them.
We got to do them one by one, so let's do Amendment 1
Certainly.
because we have to vote on them each time. So
Great. To amend said board bill, page 3, line 10 to page 3, line 12 as follows, beginning on page 3, line 10, strike out the words, the actuaries maintained by the Board of Trustees may be the same actuaries retained by the Board of Trustees for the Firemen's Retirement System.
does everybody understand that? I'll go down the line. Alderman Boyd, Vice Chairman Boyd, any questions on the amendment?
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard, any questions on the amendment?
No questions.
Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard, any questions on the amendment?
No questions.
Alderman John Mohammed, any questions on the amendment?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Pam Boyd, any questions on the amendment?
No questions.
Alderwoman Shameem Clark Hubbard, any questions on the amendment? Okay, at this point, I would take a motion to adopt amendment number 1 to,
So moved.
Second,
is there a previous roll? Or maybe we
Previous
should.
roll.
We might have,
Objection.
yeah, we may have had people come on and off. I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Chairman Vaccaro,
Aye.
6 aye votes.
We've adopted amendment number 1 to Board Bill 221 Committee Substitute. Alderman, would you give us your amendment number 2?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Amendment number 2 to Board Bill 221 Committee Substitute to amend said Board Bill, page 9, line 8 to page 9, line 9 as follows, beginning on page 9, line 8, following words, St. Louis firefighter, strike out the words and a participant of the plan.
That's the whole amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll go down the line. Any questions on the amendment, Vice Chairman Boyd?
No questions.
Any questions, Alderwoman Carol Howard?
No questions.
Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard, any questions on the amendment?
No question, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman John Muhammad, any questions on the amendment?
No questions.
Alderwoman Pam Boyd, any questions on the amendment?
No questions.
And Alderwoman Shameem Clark Hubbard, any questions on the amendment? Okay, well, I would take a motion to adopt amendment number 2 to Board Bill 221 Committee Substitute.
So moved.
Second,
Is there a previous roll on this one?
previous roll.
Hearing no objection, we passed out amendment number 2 to Board Bill 221 Committee Substitute. Alderman Oldenburg, please close on your bill, and we're going to take a vote, and we'll move on to the next thing then.
Certainly. I really have nothing further. I know you guys have an agenda in front of you, but I just want to thank you all and look for your favorable consideration on Board Bill 221 Committee Substitute as amended.
Okay, so, yes, sir. Yes, I'm sorry, Vice Chairman Boyd. Yes.
I was notified that Paul Payne was supposed to be making a presentation. And he
Well,
was on and
The thing was that if we do that, then we're going to go across the board and we're going to have presentations from everybody
Okay.
across the board. It's the only reason I put them aside. And that's really what it had to do with. Because I know so many people are interested in the close the workhouse one. I just wanted to move through all this and not take, a real long time, because if we start one, then we're going to start the other. And they're,
okay, it's fine.
that's the only reason I did it this way.
Okay.
Because like I said, the close the workhouse, a lot of people are sending stuff going, well, I thought you already, well, we'll discuss it when we get there. So I will take a motion to pass Board Bill 221 Committee Substitute as amended out of committee.
So
Mr.
moved.
Chairman,
Yeah, yes.
Second.
Okay, so we got a first and a second. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd,
Present.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad,
aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Chairman Vaccaro,
Aye.
5 aye votes and 1 voting present.
So by your vote, we have passed out with the due pass recommendation to the full board, where it can also be debated. Board Bill 221 Committee Substitute as amended. So we're going to move on to, here we got
Board Bill 212.
222. Yeah, I didn't know if we were going to save that, but we can
Oh.
do that.
Well, you do what you're gonna do. I'm sorry.
Alderwoman Boyd is also on the committee, and Alderwoman Shameem, Alderwoman Tyus is not on the committee. So I guess I would jump to 235 if she's out there, because she's not on the committee. 232, I'm sorry. Alderwoman Tyus, are you out? Are you with us? If she's not, then we will go back to the committee members. Okay, so I don't hear her anywhere. So we'll give her time to come on. We'll go to 212. I think that one's going to take a little time, but everybody's on the committee, so we're all here.
Mr. Chairman, just for the sake of time, I don't know if 226 would take a lot of time up. I'll yield to the Alderwoman of the 27th to take her bill up before mine.
Okay, Alderwoman Pam Boyd, you're recognized on Board Bill 226. Where'd she go?
Here.
There you are. Okay. You're recognized on Board Bill 226. If you could present your Board Bill, please.
Okay, this bill, I know a lot of people have concerns, and over the past years, we have been seeing an increase of barbecue pits on front porches. And so I do know it is a fire violation of, you have to have your barbecue pit. You can't have a fire 3 to 6 feet close to your building. And so my concern is a lot of people are barbecuing on the front under the porches. And my fear is people's homes are going to set on fire. And so that has a snowball effect, which it will impact other residents' homes, especially if they're frame homes. That is my biggest fear. And so this bill is saying that it's a violation of having a barbecue pit on the front and on the side of the properties because of it being so close, and it's a fire hazard. And so I'm asking the committee to please consider this bill, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. And I know we do have people that don't have backyards, so I'm clear about that. But it's just the distance that I'm concerned about, is how far those pits are from those properties and how it be handled in regards to a fire hazard and the safety of our community.
Okay. Vice Chairman Boyd, any questions to the sponsor of Board Bill 226?
No questions. I agree with the sponsor.
Alderwoman Howard, any questions for the sponsor of Board Bill 226?
I do. This pertains only to recreational fires. Now, according to your definition, a recreational fire does not include a barbecue pit. It's an outdoor fire burning fuel other than refuse, leaves, grass, treated wood, or logs larger than 4 inches in diameter, where the fuel is not contained in an incinerator, outdoor fireplace, portable outdoor fireplace, barbecue grill, or barbecue pit. Has a total fuel area no more than 30 inches in diameter. Now, I'm reading it. Maybe I'm distracted here, but that they can put a barbecue grill. Is that, am I reading it wrong?
And that's not how it should be, where they shouldn't be putting a barbecue grill. And that's what I thought we had. I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering if this is doing what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, because it should be where it's not it shouldn't be a barbecue. And you're right, Alderwoman Howard. It shouldn't be a recreational fire. It should be a barbecue pit itself.
Right.
And so that's what I'm trying to deter from. Right. Okay. And so I probably need to take it back to the
Not necessarily. Alderwoman Howard.
You can amend it.
You can make an amendment. Would you like to make an amendment, Alderwoman Howard?
Oh, well, I mean, I'll make the amendment.
I think it would be.
I don't want to. I want to make sure that what I'm amending is the intent, or if Alderwoman Boyd wants to amend it.
Well, I think I think since you brought it up and you have a better understanding of what should be in there, you know, rather than go back and go to the attorney and come back in a circle, I think you would be the appropriate person to
Okay,
make an
but the
amendment.
definition, the recreational fire, is that definition, is that one that is in another ordinance? That's what I guess we need to make sure that we're not, that,
Hello.
She's, I think Alderwoman Boyd's checking too. You know, I think she's checking. I think what we might do is, let's see what she wants to do with this.
yeah, let her, yeah, it's her bill.
Yeah.
I don't want, she
What
knows
I
what.
did see, when I read down in item 3, it said recreational fires, but it specifies barbecue pits. See where it says 3?
Section 3,
Because I read down further and it did say barbecue pits.
they're
'Cause
not being used for the purpose of cooking, must be extinguished in 4 hours of following ignition.
Right. So that's specifying, am I correct? It specifies that they're not being used for purpose of cooking, smoking foods. So it's specifying that.
Okay, but you're talking, are you line 14, page 2? Is that where you are? Number 3? Okay, that are not being used for the purpose of cooking or smoking foods. But that, I guess what I'm saying is if you don't want people barbecuing on their front porch, I don't know that this does that.
And then it says on the front and side.
Okay.
See, it says it's
Okay,
located in the, yeah,
Line 6 takes care of it. They can be
Yeah.
only located. Okay, okay,
yeah.
okay. All right, never mind.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Alderman Davis.
Oh,
Okay.
see, she's out there helping. She's got helpers.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Any other
Okay.
questions?
I have no
comments?
further questions, okay?
Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard, any questions or comments for the sponsor?
No question, just a comment. I'm glad that we were able to straighten that out and clear that up. I was getting ready to say Alderwoman Howard is our new clerk, you know, to make sure that we get exactly what it is that that you want in this bill. I definitely understand.
Oh, I don't want that job.
The importance of right. I definitely understand the importance of what you are doing. I myself, I love fire pits. I'm a self-proclaimed pit master, but in my neighborhood, we do have challenges sometimes when kids are outside and they're bored, everybody's on lockdown, and they tend to start these little fires that can easily catch a porch on fire. And like too, in my neighborhood that I live in, we don't have backyards. So we do the fire pit thing, but you just have to be very careful with that because I have seen a lot of fires. We've had apartment units catch on fire. So I commend you for your efforts, and I trust your leadership in doing what's in the best interest of your constituents, because each ward is different and all of the challenges are different for every community. So I trust that you know what's best for your constituents and what needs to happen in your ward, specifically with houses so close together in your heart. They're
Right.
real compact, and a fire could easily take a blaze. So I just commend you on your efforts, and you definitely have my support on this bill.
Thank you.
Alderman John Muhammad, any questions or comments for the sponsor?
Thank you,
Alderman.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question. I just for clarification and just for confirmation. So this bill essentially bans barbecuing for anyone that does not have a front porch or anyone that does not have a backyard or a side. And I guess I'm trying to understand. Is this done anywhere else, Alderwoman Boyd? Does any other municipality or county regulate recreational fires this way? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's where we got it from. We picked it from somewhere else. And then we critiqued it to where we are. And I don't know about your ward, but I'd have people as big as having barrel pits on the front porch. And a lot of people don't know how to start fires. And so they'll pour gasoline or that charcoal fly, and flames are just flying everywhere. And so it's a safety issue to me in regards to the homes and to the minors that'll probably be around that area.
Alderwoman Boyd, if I could help address the Alderman Muhammad's question about where this bill is derived from, and can you hear me?
Okay, yes, sir.
So Alderman Muhammad, this is widely done. We looked at the ordinances from Detroit, Chicago, also Denver. Denver's is pretty strict with all recreational fire barbecuing. And what this does is that it contains this within the definition of recreational fire. But basically what it's saying is that you cannot have a recreational fire in the front of your house, but you can have it in a side yard or a backyard. So this is the designations, the zoning designations that are used in these other cities' ordinances. So it is common.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Alderwoman Boyd.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Boyd, I'll jump over you. Alderman Shameem Clark Hubbard, and then me. So I only have a comment to Vice Chairman Boyd and to Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard. I want to challenge you guys to, I keep hearing that you guys are the pit masters when I know that I am. I mean, I even have a hat that says I am. I'd like to challenge you to
Cook off.
Anyway, moving. Yes, Vice Chairman Boyd.
I'll be all in. Just let me know.
You know, we should do something this summer when this COVID stuff ends. A little tasting thing out on the parking lot for the employees, and maybe they can judge, and then we'll know that I'm the best. And are you jumping in on this? I don't know. Well, I'll challenge all the rest of the aldermen. I took second place in the overall big barbecue contest on the riverfront. Out of I don't know how many, there was hundreds of people barbecuing, and I actually took second place on my pork, and I don't know why my chicken didn't come in, but anyway, it should have. It was really good. Anyway, moving on. Alderwoman Boyd, you're open to close on Board Bill 226.
Again, I'm asking for support of my bill 226, and I'm asking that that the committee support this and pass it with due recommendations.
Okay, then I'll take a motion on Board Bill 226.
I'll second her motion.
Okay, so the motion was made by Pam Boyd, who's also the sponsor, the second by Vice Chairman Boyd.
Previous roll. No previous roll. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, right. So Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye, and thank you for doing this, Alderwoman Boyd.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Chairman Vaccaro.
Aye.
6 aye votes.
But by your vote, we have passed out Board Bill 226 with the due pass recommendation. I will give, let's see, how do I, because I'm doing this on my phone. Is Alderman Howard, Tyus out there yet? Hang on 1 second. Let me just get back in my phone. So Alderman Tyus is still not out there for her board bill. Has she talked to anybody about doing her board bill for her? Okay.
Chairman Vaccaro, I spoke with Erica, her secretary, And she
Yes.
said she was calling in soon, so I don't see her, but she did say she was calling in.
Okay, we're gonna keep
She's
moving
on, she's on.
She is on. Okay. So then we're gonna go to Alderwoman Tyus, Board Bill 232. Alderwoman, do you want to go ahead and present your bill? Alderwoman Tyus, are you with us? Are you muted or? We'll give her a minute. Madam Clerk, is she on as a participant? Oh, there she is. Okay, good. Alderwoman Tyus, you're recognized on Board Bill 232. You're muted. Okay. Let's see. We can't hear her. And sometimes she has problems like that. She may have to get on a different system. We can't hear you. Alderwoman Tice, we can't hear you. Okay, she's connecting to auto. Okay, that's fine. I see that. That's what I miss about the in-person stuff. At least we can hear each other.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. So you're recognized to present Board Bill 232.
First of all, I want to apologize. We have had major speeding in our community, so I was out to deal with the issue, so I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for being late.
That's okay. I was late too, so.
Okay, Board Bill 232 is just a continuation of a liquor moratorium that we have in the first ward that's been ongoing for numerous of years now. It's nothing was changed in it. We actually just took the prior board bill and just updated it.
Okay, then I'll go through questions. It's just kind of we'll go through. Vice Chairman Boyd, any questions to the sponsor of the bill?
Sure. Well, just a comment actually. Alderwoman, this is a 3-year moratorium, but in basically 2 years and 3 months, you may not have the same first ward. So I was just wondering if you might have wanted to make the expiration date. It may be moot, but if the expiration date was that April of 2023.
That can be done. I really don't want to because I'm hoping, this is just my wishful thinking. I'm hoping that our new mayor will have a different outlook and that we might still get to have a vote, a re-vote on if we want to go to 14, but that may not happen. And then they can deal with that, but I'd like to keep it at 3. But if that's something that you all need, I can do it.
No, it was just a comment, a thought. I'm fine.
Right.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay.
Okay. Alderwoman Howard, any questions for the sponsor? Of
No
Board Bill 2?
questions.
Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard, any questions for the sponsor? of Board Bill? Alderman John Muhammad, any questions for the sponsor of Board Bill 232? Alderman Muhammad, there he is, because he's muted, but
No questions, Mr. Chair.
okay. Alderwoman PM Boyd, any questions for the sponsor of the bill?
No questions.
Alderwoman Shameem Clark Hubbard, any questions for the sponsor of the bill? I have none. Alderwoman Tyus, you're welcome. You're open to close on Board Bill 232.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, again, I want to apologize for being late. I do like to come to committee hearings. I have a weekly hearing, so I'm pretty committed to that. The liquor moratorium is something that the community has been asking for. In fact, I want to just add a little bit more. This may not, I may not have this for the entire 3 years because we're looking at something else on a larger scale. I think we need, especially in North St. Louis, a number of us have these moratoriums. I think we need to make it something larger and address it holistically instead of piecemeal. I don't like piecemeal. But right now, that's the way it's done. But I think we need to go into more into a zoning commitment. And I do know that that's been done in some other parts, and it's something I'm looking at now.
Okay.
And I would request that you pass Board Bill 230, what is it,
232, you're asking we pass it out with the do pass recommendation.
Request that the committee pass out with the do pass recommendation.
So I'll take a motion.
I'll
to
make a
pass-
motion to pass out Board Bill 232 with the do pass recommendation.
Mr.
Second.
Chairman, I second that motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any call for previous roll?
Previous row.
Okay. Hearing no objection to previous roll, we passed out Board Bill 232 with a do pass recommendation. Okay, now we'll go back to Board Bill 212. 1 second. Let me make notes. So on this board bill, since there's going to be people that do want to talk, it's going to be open to any of the alder people that are on here that feel will go through the committee. And then, so I would just say, we can, anybody that wants to open their mics, if you're one of the alder people that want to speak on this, do that. You can send me something by chat or just raise your hand. And Madam Clerk, if they raise their hand, would you please recognize them? We'll go down the committee, and then after that, anyone that raises their hand. And I am open to anyone that wants to speak on this. So Vice Chairman Boyd, you're recognized on Board Bill 212.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have a committee substitute, and I'd like to make a motion to move that we put committee substitute for Board Bill 212 before the committee.
I'll second that.
Okay.
And is there a request for previous roll? Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 212 committee substitute is now in front of us.
Okay.
Alderman, please, yes.
First of all, let me just tell you the change, and it's some very minor changes. On page 2, we're just adding on line 1 after the word potential negative, after the word impacts on the welfare of the detainees, we're striking out the word to. Line 2, we're striking out potential economic input to, and we're adding.
Is this all amendment number 1?
It's within the committee substitute.
Oh, it's a whole, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry.
And also go back to line 2, we're striking out potential economic impact to, and we're adding city's economy, I'm sorry. And then on line 12, we're changing the date from April the 2nd to April the 6th. And I believe that's the gist of the minor changes. Of course, actually a major change was the date. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I bring this up to put a vote before the people. We've heard for at least a year now different conversations about closing the workhouse. I'm of the mindset that the workhouse belongs to the people, and the people should have a voice on closing the workhouse. I do want to recognize that there's been a lot of conversation about a Close the Workhouse coalition, educating people on the impact of closing the workhouse. But at the end of the day, the workhouse belongs to the people. We did do, I'll make mention to, there was a bill passed given a date of December 31st, the city having a plan on closing the workhouse. I was probably the only alderman that made a statement that I am not in favor of a hard stop of closing the workhouse on December the 31st. I was concerned about the impact it may have on the community, and I'm committed to that. December 31st came and passed. With COVID-19, it made it pretty difficult for the city to actually close the workhouse based on the intent of that legislation. But I've been hearing from my constituents, and they don't understand, why we would want to close the workhouse. So I think it's only fair to go across the city and ask people, allow the people to decide on whether or not we should close the workhouse. And it's just a simple, non-binding preferential vote. It's basically like a survey, but the citizens across the whole city get a chance to weigh in on it. So that's.
And I was just gonna say, there is, someone asked me, well, that's the cost of putting it on a ballot. No, there's a ballot already there. There's gonna be a vote. Adding it isn't gonna add cost that I'm aware of.
Zero cost to us to do
Right.
it, because it's not a special election.
Right. And I also was with you and agree. I think that the Dale Glass did bring back what he said would have to happen in order to close the workhouse. And I went in there along with John Muhammad, and I don't know who else was with us at the time. And I did talk to the people in there who feel that putting them in a worse position than what they're in now, that they're not really happy with that. They don't really want to go into a place to be overcrowded, and they certainly don't want to be transferred somewhere out of town. And that's what the when the commissioner came to us, that was the option to close the workhouse, that we take people, the closest places were pretty far away, and that they would put people on what they called boats in the Justice Center, and it would overcrowd the Justice Center. But I didn't want to, I'll let you continue, but I didn't want to throw that in there because, you know, I agree with what you're saying. And I'm also getting people saying, well, everybody in the whole city wants this. And I'm getting a lot of people in my neighborhood saying, I don't. And I don't know why we want to punish the people that are in there more than they're already being punished. Because by saying, look, we're going to take you out of a bad situation and put you in a worse one, because the city can save what is roughly $1 million or $2 million. It's not the 8 or 10. The whole budget is only 8. So it can't save 8. Anyway, I just want to throw my comments, and I apologize for jumping in there.
No, it's okay, but I want to be clear, Mr. Chairman. This, again, it's just a vote of the people to affirm the hard work that's been done by the Close the Workhouse Coalition, or to not affirm the work that's been done. It's pretty benign. It's just a survey, you know, asking our constituents, do they feel that we should close the workhouse? It's not my intent to have a lot of debate on whether or not, you know, closing the workhouse is a good idea or a bad idea. I just want to take it to the people and ask the people, based on the information they've been given thus far, do they think that it's a great idea? And I'll just open myself up for questions.
Okay, then I'll go down the list. Alderwoman Carol Howard, any questions to the sponsor of Board Bill? You know, I have a question. Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You know, because I'm doing this without my notes. I'm sorry. No, we're fine. We've adopted, we're on committee substitute. So board, any questions to sponsor on Board Bill 212 committee substitute?
Are you ready for me?
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm trying to read my notes.
Alderman Boyd, I just have a comment. I commend you. I think this is a very reasonable thing to do. I think that, you know, when we start looking at this, I'm in contact with people that work at that are correctional officers. And I think that, you know, we know just recently there's been some issues. So I think that putting it before the voters, the taxpayers in the city of St. Louis that, you know, have a stake in this, I think this is a very reasonable action. And I think that we can live with it. It's non-binding. And if, you know, we move along and the city decides that it's economically, you know, feasible or not feasible, it doesn't hold us to anything, but it gives a barometer of what the general population is feeling. And I think sometimes we get overwhelmed with people that are more vocal than others. And I think the regular taxpayer that goes to work every day should have a say on this. Because many times they don't have time to, you know, do all the work that some of the special interest groups do. So I appreciate and commend you for doing this, and I think this is something that may guide us as we move along. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm gonna state again, so far, the only one with their hand up, and I'm gonna do them in some sort of order, is Alderwoman Tyus. After we go through the committee, I'm gonna follow that order. So I'm gonna run down there, then it's Dan Guenther, and then Alderman Dan Guenther, and then Alderwoman Annie Rice. That's the order so far beyond the committee. Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard, you're recognized. Any questions for the sponsor on Board Bill 112 committee substitute?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. We all have been through some very heated debate and trying discussions regarding this whole issue of close the workhouse. We have heard from the experts who have offered their expert opinion, but I commend the Alderman of the 22nd Ward. I mean, we've made many hard decisions down here, and I feel we're doing our due diligence when we put it before the public, because I too have not heard that outcry from my community, and it's bigger than just one or two people getting on a Zoom call saying they live in the 5th Ward, and as if they're the voice, or you should vote what that particular person said. And as I state all the time, the bulk of my constituents don't have the luxury of getting on these calls to make their opinions be heard. But throughout that entire process, my decision is still what it is. I think we would be making a bad decision to move in haste regarding this. I am more concerned about the families who would be further disenfranchised if they had to go 3 hours away to see one of their offenders or one of their family members who's incarcerated. We as older people don't really have a say on who's released and who has to stay. That's the judge's decision. So I think some of that outcry should be said that way. But when we have our experts, our people who have 40, 50 years in the industry and no correctional standards, when they come before us and tell us that it's not feasible and we'll have added costs as far as transportation and we still have to provide medical care and stuff like that, then it cautions me, because I trust their leadership, and it's bigger than what, some organization, and I'll be quite frank with this, that's filled with people who don't look like me, telling me what's in the best interest of my community. And I'm not hearing that outcry to the people who I walk past every day who would hate to have to drive 3 hours away to see their family members in a rural area where they may be profiled and where they may be treated very badly, just trying to help, their family until they're actually released or until they're sentenced to another entity. So there's still so much out there regarding this issue. But with that being said, I feel that we are doing the best that we can when we say, okay, even if we don't, agree with this closure, let the people decide. And if the people decide, the same way they've decided with reduction of the board, the same way that they decided on other, very controversial issues. So I definitely support this. And I think that, we put it on the ballot and the people say, hey, close it, then we got some heavy duty work ahead of us, and it may make us incur some costs that we are not ready for in light of a financial crisis and dismal budget projections that we have going forward. And if the added expenses that we have to make us trickle down and cut some of our most basic services just to do the will of the people, then that's what we'll be left with. And so I'm looking forward to the people deciding what's best for us. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Alderman John Muhammad, any questions to the sponsor on Board Bill 212 committee substitute?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman, can I ask you a couple of questions, please?
Sure. Alderman Boyd or Vice Chairman Boyd.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Assuming that people in the city of St. Louis agree that we should close the workhouse, do you see any immediate reaction to that from the Board of Aldermen or from City Hall in general? Do you think that it would be our responsibility to put forth legislation or put forth a real plan to close the workhouse, if in the event that residents believe that we should.
Well, I think we have an obligation to listen to the will of the people. At the end of the day, we represent the people's best interest. And there are some times when the people may want something, but because of the institutional knowledge that we have that they don't have, we have to explain to them why that may not be practical and that we should not do what they have the will for us to do. But then there are oftentimes, and probably more often than not, the will of the people is for us to exercise due diligence and do things that are in their best interest. And we should listen, and we should be thoughtful as we listen to the will of the people and see if we can't, resolve the issue. I think that's very important. And I don't think we can get a better barometer of how we make policy decisions than a vote of the people. I think that's very powerful. And that's something that we can always stand on. If it ends up being a bad decision, we could say we were listening to the will of the people and now we know better. And then we go back and fix it. But certainly there will be people who don't like the decision that may be made on a vote of the people for this. And there are people who may like the decision. But at the end of the day, I want to hear from the people. And I think we should all want to hear from the people.
No,
And to see where the votes come from. It will be very eye-opening to see across the whole city what wards, what demographics is for it and what demographics is not for it. So
absolutely.
Another
Absolutely.
tool to make a good
Thank
decision.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with you. And I do support this board bill. I support putting this question to the people. I have had some people in my ward express that they want the workhouse closed, and I have had, hundreds of people express to me that closing workhouse is not in the best interest of our city in my ward. So I'm at a hard place because I really don't know what my ward thinks outside of the 300 people that return surveys or return phone calls. But I think that this is essential. And I do think that having this question on the ballot will give us greater insight on what voters want, especially in North St. Louis. Because I agree with Alderwoman from the Fifth. I have not seen a large outcry from my constituents asking to close the workhouse. But I know this is a critical issue, and I know that we must address it in some form or some fashion. And I do think that putting this question to the voters is the responsible thing to do. I appreciate your leadership on this, Vice Chairman Boyd. I will support it. And I do ask the clerk to add me as a co-sponsor to this board bill. No further questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Vice Chairman Boyd.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Pam Boyd, any questions to the sponsor on Board Bill 212 Committee Substitute? Alderwoman Boyd, are you still with us? I'll give her a second. You never know how sometimes she may have had to step out. Alderwoman Boyd, any questions to the sponsor? So we'll move on. I'm just going to add my comments, even though I had some at the beginning. First off, add me as a co-sponsor. Secondly, I don't know, one of the things that I would say, which I said at the beginning, I actually physically went in and talked to the people there. Nobody wants to be in jail. Nobody wants to be in jail. That's a fact. But when you say, would you prefer to be moved over to the Justice Center in an overcrowded? They're like, no, we're happy here, leave us alone. When I say, well, the potential that you would be somewhere 2 or 3 hours out of town, again, they said, no, please leave us alone. I went in there with Alderman Muhammad. We played basketball with the it was actually the girls, and they were better than me, but that's okay. I asked Alderman Dan Guenther why don't you go make a surprise visit? He said, well, if we tell them they're coming, they're going to make everybody clean the place. I have pictures. I went through that whole place, down in the basement, everywhere, and didn't find any of the things that I'm being told. When I talked to the people there, they're asking why are you guys wanting to punish us? Why are you trying to make things worse for us? With the stuff that went on at the Justice Center, thank God we had a place to move these guys, these people that were causing the problems of wanting not to get back in their cells. I just wanted to make that statement. I encouraged and overly encouraged and asked, why didn't you go in there and talk to them? I think besides listening to our constituents, the people that I also listened to, and there's witnesses to that conversation because there was more than me and John there. There was a little group of us there. Talking to the people that are there, they really feel like, why are you guys basically going to move us into a worse situation? So I just wanted to make that comment. Even putting this to the people, that's fine. But when this is all said and done, and if we choose to just hard close that workhouse, nobody is going to be wanting to take responsibility. I know I won't. When people get sent to a very worst situation, because the next group will be saying, that's overcrowded. And that's horrible that you sent all these people there just because we just voted on doing all this to those people. You're going to be saying, well, this is terrible. It's horrible. No, just let them all out, which is not an option. Just letting everybody out of jail is not an option. Unfortunately, there's people that belong there. And unfortunately, there's people that do not belong there. I would be for supporting a low cash or no cash bond on certain, not, as long as it's not a major felony, but just to sit there and say, gee, you know what? Let's put these people, because this is the bill we're addressing right now. I just want to put it out there. I mean, I talked to the people in there, and they're not really happy that we're considering putting them in a worse situation. And I also, and I wasn't part of this group that said, gee, we need to shut down Larry Rice. But all they did, they took a situation that was bad for homeless people, because some people said, gee, that's not the best. And I'm sorry, I'm off subject a touch. But now the homeless people are scattered. They're out, luckily we haven't had anybody die from freezing. But why would you take somebody from what people say, in their opinion, were a bad situation, saying, oh, that place was dirty? So this is even better. Now they're not there. So now they're out on the streets. They're sleeping across the street at the stadium. Why do we make these decisions to take somebody out of a bad situation and say, well, we're going to make it worse, so we're going to do this? Anyway, I'm going to go down the list. I'll get off my high horse. I feel for all those people that are in the workhouse. And I would say if you took a poll of them, or if any of the aldermen would have went over, like I suggested, bring a committee with them of people from Close the Workhouse, interview the people, I think you would have a different feeling on this. I feel bad for all the people that are in there. I feel bad for the people that are in there with mental illness. I think we should be having a whole mental illness floor. I think we should be doing things to make things better, not simply say, let's just don't treat the problem. Let's just throw everybody into a worse situation. And I'll jump off my high horse here. Alderwoman Tyus, you had your hand up first, so you're first.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I see Alderwoman Davis's hand is up. I don't know if that was from something.
Well, no, I wrote them in the order that people put their hands up. It was you, then it was Dan Guenther, then it was Alderwoman Rice, then it was Alderwoman Ingracias.
Okay.
If you want to, and then after that, Alderwoman Davis put her hand up next, and then Alderwoman Howard put her hand up after that. She's actually on the committee. So I think. as
I'll
long as
wait
it's
till
fine with
everything
her.
else is done. Thank
Okay, if it's fine with her, then we'll do it that way. So that's the lineup. I think the way I took it down was Alderwoman Tyus, Alderman Guenther, Alderwoman Rice, Alderwoman Ingracias, uh, Alderwoman Davis, and then Alderwoman Howard. That's just how I wrote it down. And if Madam Clerk, am I correct in the way I wrote them?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I have.
Okay. Okay.
I'm-
So
Davis was on the committee, and I just didn't want to get in front of somebody.
no, she's not on the committee.
All right. So if the alderman from the 22nd would yield.
Yes.
First of all, I don't have a problem with this board bill going forth, but I want to make a suggestion, and you kind of touched on it before. So when we put things out to a vote for the public, if the public is not really informed, they vote all kind of ways. And I want to bring up two things that I think that was really a mistake. Let's start with Proposition D, okay? There were things that people did not know or didn't care that was going to happen. And so we went out there and we pushed Proposition D, and it, in my community, epic failure. They hate that. They don't understand why I'm not running as a Democrat. They don't understand this, voting for more than one person. In fact, the surveys that come out saying, high number of people are still gonna vote for one person. There's all kind of things. There's some more things. I knew some of the things I was opposed to it. And so when people don't have good information, sometimes they think they're doing one thing, that's another. And people thought that they were preventing, and they kept saying, well, Lyda Cruzan got in there with 32% of the vote. And in fact, an alderperson called and said that to me. And I said, no, she didn't. And they said, yes, she did. And I said, no, she didn't. And Lyda Cruzan won with 32% of the vote of the Democratic primary. But then there was a general after that, and she did not win. And the person who I said it to said, oh, wow, and this is a member of our board. So, and I also think the whole ward reduction is something that people didn't get. So I don't have a problem putting this before the people, but I would suggest that we at least try to do a fair campaign of why we might think it is a good or bad idea, even, having a hearings to talk about the pros and cons of it, just to try to raise the awareness so that our people are not just out there voting, because otherwise they get information from somebody else and they'll come in with a vote that doesn't have anything to do with what they truly believe, okay? And I had a conversation with several of the people who led the Proposition D, who are close to me, that I really got furious with about them and said, how dare you decide you want to change how the members of the Board of Aldermen run, and you don't even give us the courtesy, and I'm said this during the thing, you don't even give us a courtesy to ask us, well, how does this affect you, okay? So that's the thing I would suggest, is that maybe we do a little bit of educating the people so that they can know the pros and cons of it, because otherwise we will have a newspaper or a couple of newspapers go out with an agenda that maybe really don't reflect what people are saying or really think in our communities. We had a health committee meeting Wednesday, I guess, or Tuesday, in which we had the public safety director and Mr. Glass and some other people in to talk about some of the things. One of the things that I brought up and talked about, because I've been dealing with the workhouse since 1989. That's my first time I ever went to the workhouse as a young attorney. And it is, I don't care what people say, it's still got a lot of problems. But at the same time, I was the chair of public safety when we built the Justice Center. And we did not build the Justice Center to house long-term prisoners. When I was a young attorney, people used to, because we would have to bring them in and the sheriffs and take them into the courts, people would run off and take off. We would have to sit for hours to wait for people because they were coming in from someplace else. And so the judge would be sitting around. Jack Garvey was the circuit attorney then. I was a public defender. We would all be sitting around, kicking our heels, waiting for people to get into court. So that was one of the reasons, is that we needed a place where people who were coming in for trials and federal people is being used the way it was built. But I'm not saying that the workhouse cannot improve. And I brought up at one time about that I had a tenant that ended up in the workhouse, locked up from Martin Luther King's birthday until I got him out on Good Friday. And he has now since had all of his charges dismissed, everything. But one of the major problems why we have a lot of people locked up is because the judges are not following the law about bond. I know a lot of people think because people are accused of something that they are guilty. They are just accused. We are supposed to have a fair bond hearing in an expeditious manner. We don't do that. That is not the city that's not doing that. That is the judges that are not doing that. And so if we can't just jump on the city. I believe that most people are not found guilty. So I don't care if I'm accused of murder, if I'm not found guilty, unless they have some very good evidence to say why I should be held, I ought to be given a reasonable bond hearing and make a determination if I'm supposed to be locked up or not. That is not happening in our court system. And the young man who was my tenant, he was held over January, February, March, April. And in fact, they were getting ready to hold him over to June and July. So that is where we need to address the issue. And Judge Edwards agreed and said that was, and he used to be a judge. That is a problem. In fact, the courts, the Missouri Supreme Court has written a directive to our city judges in the city of St. Louis. And I'm not talking about our municipal, I'm talking about the judges that are circuit court judges, saying that they are supposed to have better bond hearings and they're not supposed to be keeping people locked up in there. But again, I don't oppose having, especially non-binding, but I just want to caution that we might get a outcome that we were surprised at, because the people who are supportive of it will still have such a large voice. I was the last person to come on board because I still am opposed to spending $8 million on a facility, and then we can't spend $8 million in our community. So that was what convinced me, not that I want to close it, but that I think we need to take part of it and redo it and put people in there, and then take another part and bring people that are in other jails and bring them in. So when their families need to visit, that they're there. I think we could repurpose the workhouses, which my thing was, not do a hard close. But if it comes to, we're going to spend $8 million on a facility, and I don't care how many times people say that it's fine, it's not. It's cold in there. I've been hearing that for 30 years now. When I used to go visit, it was cold in there. You better put on your coats and things. There are other problems. When I took a tour back in 2001, when we took the tour through the workhouse, and I know they've done some improvements, but a lot of the things the young man who was locked up for those months told me were the same things we had then, the same problems. And people will clean up when you're taking a tour. And if you don't think that that's true, then I got some bridges I want to sell you. But workhouse, I'm not saying that it's supposed to be perfect, but I'm saying we got some legal directives about how we have to treat prisoners, and we cannot be inhumane. I will agree with the alderman from the 23rd that if we fill the Justice Center out, we might be facing a federal judge, which was what we had back in 2000 in the 90s. Judge Cahill directed us, because we didn't have the Justice Center. We had the jail and we had the workhouse. And at night, we would fill the workhouse up, and at night, we would let out 50, 100 people and just to satisfy the constituents that we were locking people up, we would lock them out and literally let them out at night, because Judge Cahill made us, we had to have a certain amount of people that we could have in the workhouse, and we were over that number. So if we close the workhouse and we're over the number in the Justice Center, then we're either going to have to start putting it in someplace else. And traveling does become a problem, because we had people who escaped while traveling. We had all kinds of issues before we had the Justice Center. So we will trade one problem for another one. But a vote is not going to hurt anything. I will be supportive of this, but I would just hope again that you would look at doing some education about why you think it is or is not a good thing to do, and maybe let the other side maybe have some kind of hearing or something. That's my comment. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, Alderwoman. And you're right. Proposition D was something that was just shoved down our throat. We didn't participate. There were no community meetings that I were aware of about how this could have a great benefit to the city of St. Louis. Reduction of aldermen I think I keep saying I bear some responsibility. We slept on it. We just didn't think, that they would vote for that. But what it has taught us is we do, like you said, we need to educate our voters on what's going on. We should educate them on the pros and the cons. But listening to the Close the Workhouse campaign, they've said they've done a lot of outreach across this whole city and that people are informed. But unfortunately, I'm finding in my ward that not many people are aware. So this is a great test to all the outreach that's been done. And the great thing about it is you said it's non-binding. So it's not absolute that we absolutely have to do it. If we find out that it's not the right thing to do, we shouldn't do it. We find out it's the right thing to do, then we should do it. I mean, I wish that we didn't have any jails in the city of St. Louis. I wish we could close both of them because that would mean we are living in a very safe community. So thank you, Alderwoman. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Alderwoman Tyus. Alderman Dan Guenther, when you had your hand up, questions for the sponsor of the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and I had my hand up for Board Bill 226 as well, so I appreciate you allowing us to jump on this one.
I apologize, I didn't see that. But...
No problem. We'll just debate it on the floor because there were some questions about that. I also just want to clarify with you, Mr. Chairman, because looking at the attendees, there are quite a few people from the Close the Workhouse campaign. And I think you stated earlier that you're not allowing any public testimony for this bill. Is that correct?
I am having the aldermen that are off the committee speak on the bill. I understand and I know that, but it'll be the same exact, well, but you said that it was going to close on the 1st and it's not closing on the 1st. I know the opinions at this point. This is a board bill that we're going to vote on, whether we're going to move this to the floor or not. I don't want this to be a one-sided meeting. It wasn't advertised to be open to the public, so we won't have both sides. We'll only have one side. So yes, there was no, nothing put out there to have public input. We've had it 3 times in the past on it. And I don't think that having one-sided public input is going to change the vote of any of the members on this committee. So is that your question?
Exactly, and that's kind of one of my concerns. Well, I think you answered exactly that. That as we're having a vote, whether or not we should go to the public to ask them a question, we are also eliminating the public's ability to speak on a public meeting. So yeah, it answers my question. Interesting.
Listen, I'm the chairman, so I'll talk. They've had that opportunity time after time. And do you feel that they should not have an opposing side? You think we shouldn't have advertised this? If you're going to have public speaking, but you have one group that is capable of emailing each other to make sure they're all on one side of an issue. There's no, on every one of these, it's supposed to be, if you do it, there's supposed to be pros and cons. People have to sign up pro or con. They would have got 3 minutes. This is the first, actually. Besides, I wouldn't have done it anyway. We've hashed this out. Unfortunately, I understand that the Close the Workhouse people are going to say exactly this. But you all voted 100% to close the workhouse on the 1st of the year. No, we didn't. The vote was to have the commissioner come in front of us to say, have a plan to close the workhouse. If you think transferring people to a much worse situation, if you hate those people that much that are in the workhouse, if you think transferring them to a worse situation is the best way to go, that's your vote. That's fine. But I understand I've gotten letters about, we said that we're going to close it on the 1st. No, we said we would look at the possibility of closing it. We said if the commissioner came up with a reasonable plan to close it. Do you feel that putting people in a much worse situation is a reasonable plan? Do you? That's a simple question, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I do believe I have the floor to ask questions, and
I'm asking you a simple question.
You go on with a long answer So
I answered
do I
your
have the
question. I answered your question.
Do I have the
I'm
floor,
asking you to
Mr.
answer
Chairman?
mine. No, I haven't. I answered your question. That we're not.
Oh, I thought I
answered
had
your
the floor.
question, and I answered it why. I'm asking you a simple question. Do you feel putting the people in a worse situation is the way to go? I take it by your
Mr.
silence,
Chairman,
you
I
don't
believe
know.
I am allowed to ask questions now.
Well, I'm asking you a question. I assume you're not going to answer it. I assume you're not going to answer the question.
Again, I believe I have the floor.
No, you asked me a question. I answered the question. You asked me the question about all the people you called, I guess, to have sign up to talk, which you didn't call the people that on the opposing side. So I answered it. I'm allowing the alderman to speak, even off the committee. So I asked you a simple question. Now, if you, by your not answering, I assume the answer is.
So
you don't
I'll
care.
go ahead, Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and answer your question, although I believe some of my elders here can contest that this isn't the way it goes. If you wanted to ask questions to me, you can inquire of the alderman from the 9th. I believe I have the floor. I'll go ahead and answer your question, though. There's
I am
never
the chair.
been a proposal to
I am
put
the
people in a
chair.
worse
If you're,
position. There's
if
never-
you're challenging the chair, you can do that. You can object to the chair, but you can't just say, you're not the chair, he's the sponsor of the bill. You asked me a question, I answered it. As the chair, I have the right to ask a question. Now, I will take by your silence.
I believe you're out of order, but I'll go ahead and answer your question, Mr. Chairman. And that answer is there has never been a proposal to put people in a worse position. The proposal is perfectly clear. There's so many times that we show up to these board meetings and we show up to these hearings that we feel like it's deja vu, Groundhog's Day. A matter of fact, just looking at some of the history of Close the Workhouse, which has been a 3-year campaign, that at any time people could have come to a meeting and spoke against it. At any time, anyone on this board could have asked their constituents to come in and speak against it. We've had people speak against because we've been working on this for 3 years. Now what you're doing, though, and again, this whole Groundhog's Day, it was January 14th, 2020, exactly 1 year ago from today, that we stood on the steps of City Hall in the rotunda and we presented the plan of how to close it. So we've had plenty of opportunity to have pros and cons of this closing the workhouse. And I believe, the Alderwoman from the 1st Ward saying that, well, we need a campaign to raise awareness of what this is. I can't think of an issue that has had more awareness than close the workhouse. I can't think of an issue, maybe besides the airport, that has had more hearings, more bills, more public testimony, more rallies, more gathering in front of City Hall to present a plan to close the workhouse. Matter of fact, 6 months ago, this whole board voted unanimously to close the workhouse. So
That's not true. That's not true.
We did. So
we voted to have. Well, I'll let
so
you
my
finish and then I'll
question.
have my say.
Yeah.
Because
So
I'm going to answer it. We did not vote for that.
again, I think I have the floor. So this is just this. So this is something that I think a lot of people are putting themselves quite in a bind right now by saying we all agreed that we're going to close the workhouse, that we're going to ask the city for a plan. We've had reports from the mayor's office. We've had reports from the public safety office. We've had the reports from the Board of Public Service. We've had the report, yet we still continue to push the ball down the road, to kick the can down the road. And this right now, coming up with, well, let's ask the public what they think. Well, what's going to happen when the public votes unanimously or votes overwhelmingly to close the workhouse? Then we're going to say, oh, the public didn't know, the public wasn't aware. We're going to pull the ward reduction or Prop D again and say, well, they didn't know what they were doing. So this whole proposal to say, let's ask the public what they think. We have been talking about this for 3 years. 1 year ago to this date, we had a press conference at City Hall to say this is the plan to close it. This is how we're going to take the money that is used for incarcerating people for 300 days plus that have not been charged with a crime or that have not had a hearing. They're just being held. We're going to say, let's go ahead and not trust the people again. Although I don't understand how we're going to pass a bill out of our board. We're going to have it signed into law by the mayor. And then we're going to say, well, let's go ahead and rethink this. Maybe we need to ask the public one more time. All this is doing is continuing well, let's talk about it. We know what the problems are. We know how we can take the money and invest it in our communities, invest it in wraparound services, invest it in job training, invest it in the people. And yet we're still here again, talking about something that we've been talking about for 3 years, talking about something that the public has overwhelmingly come out and said they want us to close the workhouse and rethink how we use those funds. They've said it. So we're going to go ahead and ask them one more time. And what's going to happen when the city of St. Louis says, yes, close the workhouse? Then we're going to come back one more time after that and say, well, they didn't know what they're talking about. So, you know, and this is a frustrating few weeks for a lot of us here. So I apologize if I'm getting a little worked up. But Friday, we're going to talk about an airplane, Board Bill 200. Well, why don't we put that on hold until we have a public vote? And let's hear what the public thinks about Friday. Okay, I'm just saying that this is something from the original airport bill when I came in here 4 years ago, and people were saying, well, we don't need to have a public vote on it because we're elected to represent our constituents. That was the argument for the airport. Now we're at a point to where we pass a bill, pass and sign by the mayor a bill to close the workhouse, and yet we're going to go ahead and say, well, now we want to hear from the people.
I was for a public.
We're all throwing our hands up at this. We're all throwing our hands up at this discussion, okay? And I have a whole list of things I'd like to go through, but I'll go ahead and hand it over to my colleagues because I can go on all day about this. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to ask questions. I look forward to asking questions on the floor about Board Bill 226, since you didn't recognize me then. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so in answer to your questions, that there was a plan presented, and we looked at the plan, and the plan you're saying doesn't put people in a worse situation, although it does. And again, I specifically asked you to take a group over there and talk to the people there. Anyway, I'm going to move on because we could debate each other all day. No, I'm not going to go to a different subject because I'm staying germane. Alderwoman Rice, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I had a button moved over here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee, for agreeing to hear from the rest of us on this bill. I want to start with reading Section 5 of Board Bill 92 that we passed unanimously back in July. And it says, the Commissioner of Corrections is directed within 45 days of the effective date of this ordinance to provide the Public Safety Committee of the Board of Aldermen and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment a detailed plan to discontinue operating MSI as a facility to house detainees with a planned closure date by December 31st, 2020. That is what we passed. That we required in the ordinance that was unanimously passed by this body for there to be reports given to the committee, for there to be an actual plan by the Commissioner of Corrections to be presented to this committee. And I understand that there are documents that have been presented, but there has not so far been a plan to say, this is where detainees will go if there is overflow. There was never an RFP issued for further other jails in the region to take detainees. There was an email sent out to a listserv of other jails in the area, and a couple of people responded to that. And that is not an RFP. That is not a detailed plan of where to rehouse detainees. So I believe in a number of ways, we are in violation of an ordinance duly passed, unanimously passed by this body and signed by the mayor, passed by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. And I think even considering putting this forward to a non-binding vote of the people is a dereliction of our duty as the Board of Aldermen. We like the alderman from the 9th said, we pick and choose when we want to go back to the people for things. And a lot of times that has to do with us not wanting to take hard stances. This board, I was encouraged back in July when this board came together and unanimously stated that we were in favor of closing the workhouse. We have had plans, like the alderman from the 9th said, there's been 3 years of significant public engagement around this. Every North Side ward has been canvassed. They have gone door to door. There are cards that have been signed. There have been mail sent to the mayor. There's been mail sent to the Board of Aldermen. The organizations that are directing this are 100% Black. We were asked to bring this forward as a request from these organizations, these nonprofit organizations, whose boards and whose staff are Black. So this is not about white folks from the South Side trying to tell the North Side what to do. These are organizations that have asked us to bring this forward. And so that needs to be stated because it is true, and that is what they have shown every time they have come to a committee hearing. These organizations also, this coalition has been working from the beginning around a holistic criminal justice reform. So suing our judges when we are in violation of the Supreme Court and our bail practices. So we are illegally not assigning bail the way that we should be. There are more people in our jails right now than there should be because our judges continue and our prosecutors continue to ask for bonds or not allow bonds in places where they should be. There are so many groups that have been working to try to get this system under control and have been successful at reducing the jail population, which is why this is even a consideration that we can come to right now. This is not just about anger at one particular location. This has been an issue for 30 years. And our hearing on Tuesday, the folks that came to testify said, we've known that there have been problems at the workhouse for 30 years. We know that it's cold overnight. We know that there is mold. We know that there's roaches. So why has it taken us this long? Plus, we passed a unanimous ordinance to close the workhouse. And now we're coming back with a non-binding vote to the people. To be honest, it seems cowardly. The Board of Aldermen President Lewis Reed said, as the bill sponsor of this bill said, this is not a symbolic gesture. This is as real as it gets. I do not understand how we are back here yet again. And if you wanted this to actually have some weight, then it shouldn't be non-binding, right? Take it forward. If you believe so strongly that the public was not engaged properly around this issue by nonprofit organizations who have taken this upon themselves to work for criminal justice reform in our region, then make it binding, right? If there are 16 aldermen plus the mayor race that are up for election on this ballot, and 16 aldermen who already voted to close the workhouse. So you're putting this back on the ballot at the same time as more than half of this board will be up for election. This needs to be called out. I do not understand how we continue to pass ordinance after ordinance and then not uphold what we've passed. You know, even the Board of Freeholders, right? We've been the object of ridicule because this board continues to say, oh, we passed this, but now we're coming back again to ask again, right? What is the division between when we have the authority to speak on behalf of our constituents and when we don't, right? There are discrepancies here, and I am asking all of my colleagues, stand with what you voted on last year. Stand with the ordinance that you passed. Stand with your constituents that have asked you to close the workhouse. You voted on it last year. We can demand from the mayor that we get the reports that are due to the Public Safety Committee. We owe this to the city after 3 years of engagement, plus the 30 years of known problems at MSI, to move forward with this. Board Bill 167 is the Supplemental Appropriations bill that will be moving forward at a hearing on the 20th. The Ways and Means Committee will be hearing it. That is to reallocate some of the money that should have been moved had we been able to close MSI by our December 31st date, adjusted to where we are now in the cycle, but to take that money and to actually reinvest it in the areas where it would help prevent people from being in the workhouse in the first place. That goes to pretrial services, that goes to homelessness supports. And I'm grateful that we are having a hearing on that because there was an accompanying supplemental appropriations bill proposed at the same time as the bill to close the workhouse that has never been heard. So we can continue to move forward this, and we should continue to move forward this in accordance with the ordinance that we passed unanimously last July. And I just, there are 2 continuing active lawsuits against MSI from people who have been in there recently with their treatment. We heard again this year that there are continuing issues. I apologize again, as my colleague from the 9th, that I'm a bit emotional about this, but I do not see the point. I only see, to be honest, the cowardice in taking this back before the voters after we voted unanimously on a decision here, after we have had evening hearings and daytime hearings that were published and posted the way that anyone who could come and participate could participate. We have gotten national attention for this. It is time to stand by what we asked for and close the workhouse. Thank you.
Thank you. And just so you know, on the airport, it also is non-binding. The Board of Aldermen cannot give its vote away. An alderman cannot give their vote away to the people. Now, they can do a charter amendment like they did, but anything we do is always non-binding. It always comes back to a vote. The alderman, even on the airport, which I supported, a vote of the people, it's always non-binding. We can't give our vote away. In other words, we can't have them vote for us. I just wanted to clear that up for you. Thank you. Alderwoman and Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the ability to discuss this with you, even though I'm not on the committee. I guess the Alderwoman from the 8th covered almost everything that I was wanting to mention, but it is incredibly frustrating. I mean, we 27 aldermen voted for this. 1 person was absent and 1 person did not vote, including every single person who's sitting on this hearing today. It's an embarrassment that we are violating our own laws that we are passing, and we are opening ourselves up for litigation. It absolutely doesn't make any sense to me. I have constituents in the 6th ward. I represent a predominantly Black ward. Many of the members of the organizations that have pushed to close the workout effort are constituents of mine. And I know that my vote to close the workhouse was representative of what folks in the 6th ward want to happen. It's becoming abundantly clear at the Board of Aldermen that we are not representing what constituents want to have happen. We are continuously getting things put on the ballot that are not being voted on or being voted against at the board. And then the public is telling us something completely different. So I think we all need to take a step back and realize that we need to be very thoughtful about who we are, how we are representing our constituents and what they are telling us they want. The other thing is that it definitely is the date of the end of December of 2020 was listed in section 5 of the bill that we all passed and the mayor signed into law. There was not an open-ended time frame. It was the end of the year. I would also like to mention that 3 out of the 4 candidates for mayor are interested in close the workhouse forward. Like, let's just get this done. To keep coming back and rehashing this over and over again is really an embarrassment to this entire board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I would say that we fulfilled what that ordinance says. And certainly if somebody feels like they would want to sue, they should. But they came and presented a plan. The plan, at least in my part, of putting people on what they called boats and overcrowding, the Justice Center, they brought their plan. We just don't like the plan, or at least I don't. I can't speak for everyone. And I think that, again, putting people in a worse situation. Alderwoman Davis, I apologize, you're next. Alderwoman Davis, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Giving reference to the bill that's before us, I see no harm in it. But I do want to also say that closing the workhouse, irregardless of our vote at the Board of Aldermen, there are other regulatory agencies that supersede us as far as how prisoners will be housed. Also looking at the opportunity to move those that need to be moved to other locations. As we all know from the presentation of the plan, they could not find enough slots to move people within at least a 3 or 4 hour drive. And I do understand, because I did call and ask questions, that they're continuing to look at other facilities that are 5 hours or more away to try to get enough slots to move people. The other thing about that too is in the meantime, so when we get all huffy about what we want done and when, there are other things that supersede us. So with what has been going on with the overcrowding at the city jail, there was a need to then send people to MSI. The problems that they were having with COVID, there was a need to send people back to MSI. So what we have now is what I consider to be regulatory issues as well as safety issues that must be addressed today. It's not about us and a date specific of closing the facility. It is about managing day to day as well as continuing to fulfill the things that have been presented to you in the plan. So the work was done. It was done very specifically and presented to us. But in the meantime, we do have to listen to the directors who are responsible to all these other agencies that are above and beyond us to keep safety primary in all of this. Keep safety primary. But we also have another problem that's been mentioned by several people, and that's our court system. Now, we can't mandate anything for the judges, but we need to get on board collectively and try to get Jefferson City to work with us so that we can deal with that situation. You have people sitting in the city jail that's been there 3 years or more. That is ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. I think that we have many issues that are putting prohibitions in front of us at the same time as us wanting to make sure that our request was answered. But in the meantime, we also need to look at the honest truth about the facility and the condition. I shall agree that in the past, it had many problems. And I've been one who has worked and volunteered there. And I probably have been in there to volunteer more than anybody else sitting here talking. And I've watched it improve, most especially in the last 5 years. When they closed down the section that they had all the problems in, that was the first good step they made. The second step they made was getting the air conditioning in place. And even though we knew that the system had been ordered and everything, we continued to have a lot of protests going on and not telling the truth.
Can I disrupt for 1 second? Because I got a text saying that somehow people are being cut out of the overall video. That it says the
that was happening. That's been happening all week because it happened.
I know. I just want to make sure that not to speak, but anybody that wants to be, listening or listening in the meeting, that somehow if they've been cut off, should be not removed. I still see the same amount of participants on the thing, people that are there. But I got this text, and I apologize for disrupting, but I do want to. They sent a picture, so I mean it does say on theirs that somehow they were cut off. So I just want to make sure that everybody that wants to be on listening can be. And I apologize, Alderwoman Davis. Go ahead with your comments. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I'll give a suggestion. I had to come out of the system and come back in because it happened to me on 2 different occasions.
Yeah, it did me too the other day.
Yeah. Okay. I think I was talking about the actual improvements that have been made. And so then secondly, we looked at how we could improve the incarceration experience. And that's when we brought in additional programming with making sure that people got their GEDs on a higher level. We brought in the cooking program where they were professionally trained to be bakers, and many of them walked out of there and walked into very good jobs at great companies. I also know that we improved the medical facility as far as the services that were being provided. The last time I was there a few months ago, they have a whole new section that really looks good and have added additional staff there. And so people are very pleased with that, because I do talk to a lot of people when I'm there. A lot of them who have been there a long time know me as Auntie. So the next part of that improvement was we already had the money budgeted, and now the work, over 75% of the work has been done for the individual showers, the privacy of the toilet facilities with new equipment, all of that, and then improving some of the pods that needed some work done. So we have a lot of things that are not the same as they were some years ago. And what I would also ask is, and I don't know why this has never been done, we need to take a video so the public can see what it really looks like in there. Because 95% of the people who are protesting have never been inside the facility. So I would really appreciate that taking place to show it. And the last part to that is we're also working on getting those people who are there who might be interested into an agricultural program. And so we're working on how to get that approved. Because again, as I say, no matter what it is we want, there are regulatory issues that must be followed. And the people who are directors of those facilities, we are blessed. We don't have somebody new. We have very experienced people who are running our facilities, and they have experience from the federal, state, and local levels. And we really have the opportunity not only to improve the city jail, because that definitely needs to be improved, that's so out of order, but also keeping that facility with some repurpose to it. But if anything else we need to do is we need to understand that just because you say you want something doesn't mean it can happen the moment you want it done, because there are too many other entities that are involved that must be satisfied before we are. And I hope that we will respect those who are in leadership and actually have the professional knowledge of what should be done, how it should be done, and when it is appropriate for it to be done. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I want to add, so in the chat, it says the Alderman from the 9th Ward has been kicked out of the meeting. Absolutely untrue. If the 9th Ward Alderman chose to leave, he left on his own. Nobody has taken anybody out of any
Mr.
meeting.
Chairman, I'm still here, but a co-host has disabled my video. Oh, now it pops up and says start your video. But I'm still here. I've been here the whole time.
Okay, well, I just, it was a thing that said you were kicked out, and no one is asking you to leave the meeting. So next on the list was
Mr. Chairman.
Carol Howe.
I want to bring some clarity. I am a co-host, and from the first time I saw Alderman from the 9th Ward in the chat, 5 or 6 times I've been requesting that he put his, I'll do it right now again, ask to start video. I've continued to request at least 7 or 8 times for him to start his video. So I'm the co-host, so I'm going to speak up for myself. So I don't know what happened, but thank you for
So
coming.
then point of order. It just let me, but point of order here is that who has the ability to censor someone because it kicked my video off, and instead of co-host is disallowing you to have video. So who did that?
Well, we have to ask STL TV, because when I saw it, like I said, I tried on several times to ask you to start your video and you didn't. So I'm one of the co-hosts, so I'll make that statement. And STL TV, it's up to us to work with them to figure out what happened. But since I was a co-host, I'm speaking up for myself because I don't want any misinformation that continues to get out there about me misrepresented. So thank you. And by the way, Alderman from the 9th Ward and all other committee members.
I appreciate that, Alderman Boyd, but I've sent the picture over to the
Alderman from the 9th Ward and all other.
I'm frozen again.
It's because if you're frozen, it's not us. You're frozen because your system. We're not freezing you. I'm sorry, Vice Chairman Boyd, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I did want to say, because maybe the Alderman from the 9th Ward doesn't understand this. This is an official committee hearing. You are the chair. The only people who has the opportunity to call a point of order are members of this committee. If you are not on this committee, you don't have the privilege to call a point of order. So let's govern ourselves decently in order. I want to put that out there because all this crosstalk and screaming and hollering is not productive. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we're there. Alderwoman Howard, you had a follow up, and then I noticed that Alderwoman Shameem Clark Hubbard came in. So I'm going to go now to the members of the committee. But Alderwoman Howard, you're next, and then I'm going to go down the committee as we're here.
First off, I would like to be added as a co-sponsor. I think that as we look at this, and we're asking for a non-binding, I guess, just taking the temperature of the community. As the Alderwoman from the first said, I think part of our job as alder people is to educate our constituency about what is going on at the workhouse. I think that we need to be sure that if we're talking about closing down, especially now with this pandemic going on, are we putting people in danger, as the Alderwoman from the 19th mentioned? And we know that we cannot stack people into a facility if we're talking about social distancing and humane treatment. Also, as the Alderwoman from the first said in her experience with the courts, we house people that don't need to be. So are we shutting something down that, maybe this process needs to be reexamined? Maybe we're putting the horse before the cart in this case. Maybe the courts need to be addressed through the state and reasonable channels, and making sure the courts are serving our constituency as they should under legal and legally. Do we further cause more stress upon families of those people that are incarcerated by moving them out? I know people that are incarcerated out that are minority people. They go to visit their kin, and they can't hardly find a hotel room. And you can believe that or not, but if you get down in the boonies of Missouri, sometimes you're not so well received if you're a person of color. I find it that, at this point in our history, that's unacceptable, but it is.
It's okay.
Excuse me. But I think we need to look at what we're doing to the people that are associated with the prisoners. Most of them aren't in isolation. We need to look at the big picture here, and we need to listen to our constituency and not just the bully pulpit. We have a lot of things to consider here. Are we going to jeopardize the safety and the health of people that are unfortunately incarcerated? I think human nature is basically good. People don't set out to do wrong, but when they do, I think there needs to be consequences. But do we have to make it egregious? No. But I think we need to move carefully, and I think that it would not hurt to get the input of our constituency on this, not just the bully pulpit. And that's all I have to say. And please add me as a co-sponsor.
So I'm going to add my 2 cents at the end of all this, and then we're going to go down the committee. I've listened. I will support a resolution that if anybody wants to put one forward, that we send something to the courts. I would support a resolution asking whoever the head judge is over there, or the governor to come speak to us, or someone to speak to us, that how we can make things better. I'd also think that if people are not being put in there for things that are not going to harm anybody, you know, maybe we can reduce the jail population. But what I honestly believe that what was brought to us is going to be harmful to the people in the jail and their families. And I honestly believe that. I'm one that's out there that says we shouldn't be fighting against Larry Rice being open. I think we harm people when we do these kind of things. And if I thought that closing the workhouse was going to benefit the people, not hurt the people, but benefit the city, I would be the first one in line to say, yes, it's just a useless place we don't need. I just don't see that at this time. I honestly believe any move we make to hurt the people in there and their families is wrong. That's my statement. I'm going to go down the list. Alderman Howard, any questions? This is just a committee now, but any questions of the sponsor of the bill?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard, any questions of the sponsor of the bill?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman John Muhammad, any questions of the sponsor of the bill? He may have lost his connection. I know we didn't turn him off. Alderman Muhammad, if you're there, any questions of the sponsor? I see his hands up, but then he's not there. I think they have video issues. Oh, you know, let me finish going down the list because I don't see him. Alderwoman Pam Boyd, any questions of the sponsor of the bill?
No questions.
Alderwoman Shameem Clark Hubbard, any questions of the sponsor of the bill?
No questions.
Alderwoman Tyus, I'm noticing on the screen you had your hand up. Is that from before or is that something new? You're muted. I'm sorry. I can't.
My name, and so I want to reply to what was said about me. So, but if you
Okay.
want wanting to close, I can just hold it. But I did want to have answered something that was said.
Yeah, I was really going to stick with the members of the committee unless you really have a problem with that.
Can I just say
Yes.
just one? Okay, first of all, this non-binding vote does not stop the workhouse from being closed. To do with the other, first of all, okay? And so secondly, I want to say, if you just give me this, I have never been so insulted. There's probably nobody sitting here who takes up for the progressives more than me. Stand up for them, help them with the rules and things like that. I want the Alderwoman from the 8th to listen to this tape of what she said, and then I want her to call and apologize. I don't care about what black people you got putting in place, telling me about what's supposed to be happening in my community. I found your words insulting and racist. I want you to understand that. Just as racist as they can be. We got some black people, and therefore they know. I am insulted and oh, I'm mad. I probably shouldn't be saying anything because I'm just so mad. Your little safe black people, which I've said it to their face, live in South St. Louis. They don't live in my community, okay? Nobody here has represented North St. Louis longer than me and advocated longer than me and advocated for you longer than me, okay? So, and have more experience in the courts than me. So I have a unique experience that you do not have and the Negroes that you are talking about don't have, okay? Don't you ever come to me again talking about I got black people and they've been in my community and they know more than me because I guarantee you they do not. That's what I want to tell you. They do not know. And just because they come over and they take a few little surveys here and there, they don't live here. Sharon Tyus, I want you to understand this, can move her butt over to Lindell and live there and say, what is going on? Sharon Tyus and Sterling Miller got more in this game than anybody, okay? We put our lives on the line all the time, all right? So I am insulted because you you said we got some black people. That's akin to saying we got black friend, one black friend. When you say that, I always say you are a racist. Because if you just got one black friend you can name, then you are a racist, because you don't need to tell me that. So telling me about you got these all black organizations, that don't mean they can speak for me. Clarence Thomas don't speak for me, and he's black, and he got a lifetime appointment, okay? Please don't do that anymore. And I really like you. I just hate what you said. And it's to the alderman from the 9th saying about another vote and people don't understand. They don't. Right now, I'll let you come to my ward organization. I'll let you come to my meeting. And the people are furious about Proposition D. They didn't understand it. You all have a different way that you communicate. And so I'm going to say this is separated not just by race, it's separated by age. It's also separated by who's on the internet. And it's separated by when people lean in on an issue and when people don't, okay? Just because you've leaned in on an issue does not mean other people have. So the vote can get by them. They got other things. There's other things that people have to deal with. And so that don't mean they understand. They look to people that they trust. I'm one of those people for 30 has trusted me. So they look. All boy just say his side. I specifically said pro and con because I never ever believed that there is too much education. I did not support Proposition D. But Sharon Tyus had a fair hearing and let all the people come and testify against something that I think is bad. So don't you ever question my motives, because the hardest thing I do is stand up for all of you progressives who then don't want to hear anything else. I've heard a temper tantrum today. And so now I've had mine and I'm done. Peace out.
Alderwoman Rice, out of fairness, do you want to respond to any of that?
Thank
you can or not, it's your call.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that I hear you, Alderwoman Tyus. My intention was never to state that I have a black friend or that I hear you. My comments to the leadership of these organizations was just in direct response to some previous comments, not of yours, that these were, that it was not being brought by folks who were impacted. So I apologize. That was not my intent, and I greatly respect you and the members of this body that have been here advocating for the people of St. Louis as long as you have. So I do apologize.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you that. So we had no comment from the board. I will ask Vice Chairman Boyd, sponsor of the bill. Would you like to close on your bill?
I would, but I'd like to address some things that were said.
That's fine.
People keep talking about all the savings if you close the workhouse, and certainly there will be savings if you close the workhouse. The challenge to that is you don't get to decide where the savings go. I've been at the Board of Alderman for over 17 years. We've created new tax revenue for specific reasons that went into a specific fund. And you know what happened? They just shortchanged the fund that it used to go to. Prime example was the demolition money, public safety money. Prime example on the state level, they sold us the bill of goods with the lottery. Oh, 100% is going to go to education. Yeah, but they defunded what they used to give education and replaced it with 100% of the money from the lottery. So at the city of St. Louis, the Board of ENA, which is the president, the mayor, and the comptroller, they pretty much get to decide where the money goes. And then the Board of Aldermen gets to co-sign off on it with the budget bill. But guess what? After budget bill, board bill number 1 is passed, throughout the whole year, Board of ENA is moving money around. And there are places where we thought that we had money allocated, they take it and do something else with it. So don't think just because you got this $8 million with a cost savings or $2 million that it's going to automatically go to health and human services, mental health programs, and public safety and all of that. because we still have a Board of Governors, ENA, that's really going to dictate where that money goes. But it's a good soundbite. The Alderman to the 9th Ward, I understand, I feel your passion. But we don't have a crystal ball. If we do this, it doesn't mean that we'll have another do-over. It doesn't mean that it automatically closed right away. We don't know. But this is just a non-binding resolution or non-binding vote to just ask the people to bring more people into the conversation. You mentioned, Alderman from the 9th, about surveillance. It didn't go for a vote of people, but you know what? If you like to introduce that bill in April, I will co-sponsor it with you, okay? Because I don't mind. I almost always vote to give the people the right to vote. I wasn't for the reduction of the Board of Aldermen, but I voted to put it on the ballot. And guess what? It was binding. It was binding. And now we're going to go down to 14. Sometimes be careful what you wish for. The Alderwoman from the 8th Ward said, why don't we go ahead and make this binding? Be careful what you wish for. That gives you a win or lose. And there's no real way out. The Alderwoman from the 8th Ward, I understand and I feel her passion as well. Unfortunately, I think she got a little reckless with her language today. I don't appreciate being called a coward because I want the people that I represent to have an opportunity to have a voice in whether or not they want to close the workhouse or not. I don't appreciate you calling this body cowards because that might be what they want. That's inappropriate and that's not fair. It came up about closing the workhouse. There are lawsuits. There's been lawsuits at the workhouse for as long as I've been at the Board of Aldermen and at the Justice Center. And there will probably continue to be lawsuits. There's lawsuits with the police department almost every year. It's just not something we're going to get away from. I'm kind of frustrated a little bit because I thought what I was doing was a good thing because of all the hard work I've been hearing the Close the Workhouse campaign has been doing. And the Alderman from the 9th Ward said it's been 4 years. I just don't understand the trepidation. If I've been working on the campaign for 4 years, this should sail through the city of St. Louis overwhelmingly saying, yes, close the workhouse. But I hear all this fear and anxiety this morning, and I don't get it. I don't get it. If you've done such a great job, allow this process to play out. I'm reminded of Clean Missouri, and forgive me if I mix up the organizations, but I think Clean Missouri was that organization did a statewide vote to regulate how our state legislatures, take lobbying gifts and how they do the redistricting lines. So they got out there and they ran a campaign, and I promise you, they probably only talked about the good of the cause. They probably didn't say anything about the cons of Clean Missouri, right? And so then what happened, there was another group and they were battling it. And then 2 years later, here we come again. They had a do-over. And it was binding. Because here's what happens when you're an advocacy organization. You tend to advocate for your interests and your agenda only. Certainly, if you don't like Jeffrey Boyd, you will talk about all the mean, ugly, nasty 10% of things he's ever done in his life. But if you like Jeffrey Boyd, you would probably talk about the 90% of all the great stuff that he did. Advocacy groups advocate for their interests. And oftentimes they only tell you what they want you to know. And I'm not going to say that to disparage anybody. I don't want to attack anybody's credibility, but I understand advocacy work. And if I have an agenda, I'm going to push my agenda. I really want to ask some of my colleagues who are against this, if they could find anything good that goes on at the workhouse. is there anything good? It's easy to hold on to that small percentage of the bad stories you've heard. And then we see what advocacy groups do is they take, what potentially was a small group of issues and amplify it as if it's 90% of a problem. And it may not be. There's good work that's going on at the workhouse. Yes, I am one of the 27 people that voted for that board bill, but go watch the tape. I said I did it with trepidation because I didn't think it was realistic. I knew December the 31st was not going to happen. You can't just do something like that. And I question and I wonder if the coalition to close the workhouse, when they came up with this great plan to show the city of St. Louis how they can close it and save all this money, how many did they work with Paul Payne, the director of budgets? Did they work with the public safety director? Did they work with the police department? Did they work with the circuit attorney's office? Did they work with all the stakeholders that are involved in making it happen? Did they talk to the commissioner, Dale Glass? Or did we take notes from other places that had done it and were successful? I'm almost offended that people have a problem with asking voters if we should do this. The Alderwoman from the first stole my thunder. And she said, this doesn't stop you from closing a workhouse. It does not. If it's a practical solution that we should do, then it's up to the administration to do it. And if the administration does not think it's practical or it's in the best interest of the city, it should not be done. See, I'm gonna keep saying this about me. I don't get on the trending train with people because it sounds good. It sounds sexy. Yeah, let's go do it. I want to do what's right by the people. And I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. But I do believe in process. And I think process is everything. And you can't have too much information to make a good decision. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I close and I ask that that this committee pass Board Bill 212 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? Well, actually, we need a second on that.
Second.
We got a first and a second. Jeffrey Boyd was, Alderman Boyd was the first. Alderwoman Pam Boyd was second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
She had to take a break. I'll call the roll, Mr.
Okay, I can call it if you want, or you can.
Yeah, we have it. Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Shameem Clark Hubbard. Chairman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderwoman Shameem Clark Hubbard. Mr. Chairman, you have 5 aye votes.
By your vote, we have passed out Board Bill 212 committee substitute to the full board for a due pass recommendation. Having said that, I don't think we have anything else on the committee. Does any member of the committee have anything they want to say before we jump off this?
I just want to say again, Mr. Chairman, civility goes a long way. And we have these hearings. I understand people are passionate about their positions, but I want to ask that we always be mindful to respect one another, because you never know when you may need that one extra vote to get your agenda across the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
I've been listening, and I've been listening a lot in regards to not only the workhouse, but a lot of other issues. And I know they're going to laugh, but a lot of people shrug off when they hear the Alderwoman from the first ward, when she gets on her issues and starts focusing on things and bringing to attention of what's really the real deal is. With Proposition D, she probably went into the research and she detailed why it was a bad idea. And then when it came to this, she again went into the research and started detailing why things were like they were and what we need to be looking at. So what I think, people need to realize, I'm not going to say progressives, I'm not going to say Caucasians, I'm not going to say any of that. I'm just going to say people need to take the personal out of things and look at the business aspect as a city, because that's what we are. We are put here to take care of business for our city. And so, I just ask that people for 2021 quit being so attacking to each other and disrespectful, and start thinking about put those shoes on your feet, walk those lines and see where you are. Because a lot of times, you only saying what you hearing people say. And again, I keep saying this, you haven't one day woke up as a Black person and know what we deal with on a daily basis. And so, all I'm asking is just please think before you start attacking and accusing people, because I feel everybody down at the board is busting their tail the best they can to try to make it better for their community. Thank you.
Anyone else on the committee have anything? If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I didn't know if it's either Alderman from the first ward. We just kind of doing announcements. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. I didn't see your hand up. And then I also didn't know if we wanted to get back, because if we go outside the committee again, then I believe we should open it for everybody outside the committee. You give me your direction, Mr. Vice Chairman.
I think we've had some pretty spirited debate today. I would yield that the Alderwoman, let her make her comments.
Okay, so Alderwoman Tyus.
I want to committee and to the other people that are not on the committee. I let my temper best of me because I really do work very hard and put a lot of time and energy in trying to be fair to everybody. And so when I hear people that I advocate for that don't even give me the time of day to think that I might have an experience different than theirs, even though when I disagree with them, I still advocate for them. And as I said, if you go and look at about Proposition D, I let, and the chair is on that committee, I let them testify for hours in direct opposition to what I believed, okay? So, but that still doesn't give me right, but I was just full up. I apologize to the chair, to the members of the committee, and to the people that are not on the committee. And please forgive me for my outbursts.
Thank you. And I think we all get passionate. And I would hope that, everyone here is speaking for what they believe in. They're passionate, and that's a good thing. And we're never going to all agree or disagree. So, I'm used to the way things were when I first started. We'd all may fight here on the floor for what we believe in, and then afterwards we all went out somewhere in each other's wards and had dinner together, or lunch together. I don't think we need to be enemies of each other, and I do appreciate the fact that people are passionate on one side or the other, including me, who is passionate in how I feel. And everybody on this, every alderman is going to have the chance to restate their feelings and opinions. We're just passing this out to the full board. Now the full board will debate this whole thing. I don't think this Friday, because it'll just be second read, but very shortly, the board will debate it and everyone will have their say again. So having said that, I would entertain a motion to.
Alderwoman Marlene had a hand, and then.
Oh, so you're doing a better job of seeing this. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you.
Joe, I think you're hungry.
Well, because of that diabetes stuff, if I don't get something to eat, I get woozy. And I didn't come prepared, but that's okay. Vice Chairman Boyd, I'm gonna let you take over, but I'll be here, but I'll let you take over. I'm gonna turn my camera off, but if you need me, I'm right here.
Okay, and is it okay if I adjourn the meeting? Okay.
Yeah, you're in charge now. There's no more votes.
Thank
You're
you.
in charge now, but I'll be there if you need me.
Okay, Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you very much for a second opportunity. I just wanted to say that debating is an art as well. And it's really important that we try to control ourselves, but I do understand the passion. But what I am going to ask our body to do is to try to give understanding to the public about the position that we are in. This is a critical time right now. And I did make a phone call last night to the MSI director to find out what the status was. And currently they have 109 people there, and they're expecting more because of the situation with the increase in crime, number one, and then, well, actually COVID should be number one. And then secondly, the increase in crime. So it's not like we have this luxury at this moment to close it and find a place to put everybody. And every other facility in the country is about in the same position. So it's gonna take a moment to figure all of this out. But you have been presented with a plan. As I reviewed the plan and listening to it, it's a pretty good plan, but you have to be able to enforce it. And at this moment, you can't because of situations. And above and beyond everything else, we don't get to say the last word on closing a facility like this. There are regulatory issues as well that are required to be followed. But I know that we can continue to look at this and get to that point. Hopefully, our society and everything else will be in better shape in a few months. And I thank you very much for the opportunity.
All righty. With that, looks like Alderwoman Mathias, are you trying to say something again?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand. Please forgive me.
Okay, all right. With that, we've had a very good spirited debate. Again, a lot of passion was shown today. But at the end of the day, we're here to do the will of the people and respect each other's opinions and the people that they represent. With that, I will consider the Public Safety Committee adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.